Hey, my friends, Pastor David here with this week's Midweek Minute. So we started this past weekend, the first weekend in Lent, with our journey through the Jesus I Never Knew. We talked about the fact that Jesus entered into the world into a particular story, the Jewish story. And by the time He entered into the world, the Jewish story had been co-opted in a number of different ways. He was born into a pious Jewish family that was living in poverty in a backwoods kind of town, the town of Nazareth. And of course, the whole Jewish nation, by the time He came into the world, was being run by the Roman Empire. And the Jewish leadership of His story at that time had been corrupted to the point that it had been splintered into a bunch of different groups of people, all vying for power about who was going to control the present and the future of His story. And when Jesus comes onto the scene, His heart is to literally take back the heart of His story and to return to the heart of His story, the one who is the heart of His story, God Himself, who by this time had kind of been pushed to the background because all of the leadership of His story had been vying for their own agendas and their own desires for what the story would look like. And so Jesus wanted to say, nope, it's God who is the heart of the story. And His heart was to take back His story. And we talked a little bit about the way that things in our own lives sometimes co-opt our stories. Things like betrayals and things like abuse and things like tragedies and things like that come into our story, and they try to steal our story from us. And that when we get connected to Jesus, the work that He does in our lives is to restore our story, to reconnect us with who we really are and who He wants us to be and who He can make us to be if we will give Him our stories, if we will let Him become the center of our stories. And the end of the message this past weekend was a question: will you trust Jesus to speak truth to your story, truth that can lead to a brand new chapter? No matter how many chapters there are in your story, will you believe that Jesus can begin a new one wherever you happen to be? I hope that maybe you've been thinking a little bit about that so far in this new week. And as we head into the second weekend of the season of Lent, we're going to spend a little bit of time with Jesus in the desert of temptation. And we're going to learn a little bit about what His experience in dealing with the evil one in the desert of temptation might speak to the challenges of our own lives, and how Him saying no to the evil one is actually the open door for you and for me to say yes to Him. I hope that maybe you can join us this coming weekend at one of our worship services in person or in one of our online opportunities to worship as well. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful week, and remember, keep looking up.